Hey everybody, it's Chris Harrison here with another episode of the Main Points podcast. Special guest today is Debbie Bogle. She's president of the United Way of Decatur and Mid-Illinois. She's going to talk about some of the programs that the United Way is helping drive and sponsor to educate our youth and really the community and help elevate other families that are in the community that are really working hard and just trying to get by. So we've got a great episode ahead for you, and thanks for tuning in. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie is president of the United Way of Decatur and Mid-Illinois. I've been on that board for more years than I can count, multiple terms and on and off and back on again. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, and thank you for being such a great board member.
Well, thank you.
And coming back every time we ask.
Yes. So certainly the United Way does a lot of great work for the community. And we do want to talk about that, but give us just a quick kind of why United Way? What's your background with United Way? How'd you get involved and why are you doing what you do? And really, why are you doing what you do here in Decatur?
Right. So I'm born and raised here in Decatur and love my community and really excited to be a part of it in the way that I'm a part of it. So I really became involved with United Way in my first real job. I was still in high school, and they had a United Way campaign. This was back in like 1986. And I've really been involved ever since then. So from being a donor to being a campaign coordinator, a volunteer for every committee, and then working at United Way, leaving and going back, being on the board. So really anything that you can think of, I always joke and say, I live United.
Right.
Because it's not even really a job to me. It is really just who I am through and through because I've been involved for so long.
It is your life and a lifestyle,
Yes.
and it's not the slogan on the T-shirt that a lot of people have seen about Live United. Like you truly do live united.
Yes, I mean it doesn't stop when I go home at night. Like I'm constantly thinking and doing and worrying about our community and celebrating our community and making sure that we can do everything that we can as an organization and a network of organizations to improve the lives of people in our community.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you said celebrate there because some of the foundations of this podcast are that we want to celebrate what's happening in Decatur. We want to educate. This podcast is about educating people, especially with your episode here, about what services that United Way is using to help people. And those services are elevating people.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
One of the greatest programs that is newer, I'll say, is the ALICE program. So what can you tell us about that?
So several years ago, United Way of New Jersey started looking at like the federal poverty rate and all of these things that determine when somebody can get assistance, and realized that so there's this group of people who work that are above the poverty level, but still not maintaining and not able to completely live and sustain their selves, with the amount of money that they make. And so they created a new metric to measure that, and it's called ALICE. And that is Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed.
Okay.
It's really what we used to say, working class poor, that type of group of people who are working every day but are not making enough money to save. They are living paycheck to paycheck. So many of us have been there before in our lives. And it's one small crisis, what we think is small, but to an ALICE family is really quite large. They're one crisis away from possibly falling into poverty.
It's the people that just are working but just can't get ahead.
Right.
And then when that one small crisis happens, they're behind.
Right.
And they're in a hole.
Yes, absolutely. And I always use the example of a flat tire. So you're driving to work, you probably work at a place that doesn't have sick time, or you may not get vacation time. So if you're off work, you're just not getting paid.
Right.
So you already don't have any savings because you're not making enough to save after you pay all your monthly bills. And so you don't have the money for a tire, plus you're missing a day of work. That could then turn into a couple days of work because you can't get to work because you don't have a car because you had a flat tire. Most Alice families typically come from Alice families. So their parents are probably Alice. And so they don't necessarily have the financial support to call up, a family member, mom, dad, somebody, and say, hey, can you help me out here? I need a new tire.
Right.
So you can see how that can snowball. So they don't have the tire, they can't drive to work, they are missing pay, so something is going to be not paid.
Right.
So whether that
and they can't get to work.
And they can't get to work.
Yeah.
So, they're not going to not buy food, but they're either not going to pay their water bill or only make a partial payment on their power bill. And so it really creates this deficit, and that they really don't make enough money to ever get caught up on. And so when something as simple as some assistance to help with a power bill, help with rent, mortgage, buying a tire, those types of things, or a bus pass so they can get to work, we've really taken that family and kept them from falling into poverty potentially at some point.
Right.
So we are really elevating our Alice families to continue to be self-sufficient and not fall into that crisis situation.
And I think in one sense, they're already in crisis. I mean, not going into a further crisis. And I really want to kind of go back to the acronym part of it too, because I want it to stick for me this time. But if you work it backwards, they're employed.
Yes.
Income constrained. And we know, wages and minimum wage has gone up, but look, we've seen some pretty high inflation over the last few years.
Absolutely.
That, your tires, your power, your water, everything around you, your food, everything is more expensive. And yes, minimum wage has gone up, but there are just some jobs that are limited jobs.
Yes.
There's only so much you're going to make. And then the asset limited.
Yes.
So that's where these are the families they came from. They can't call mom or dad or grandma to, hey, can you come pick me up, or can you take me to work? Because they're constrained too.
Right.
They don't have the assets or the income.
Correct. And it's not that these aren't great jobs. I mean, these are jobs that we need in our community. Right. If you think hospitality, restaurant, these types of jobs, we need those. And so it's not, a judgment at all on on Alice families. It is just a fact across the country. And here in Macon County, 44% of Macon County is either Alice or in poverty. 25%, so a quarter of our population, are Alice families or individuals. 19% of people are living in poverty.
Wow.
And so, there are a lot of programs that are available if you don't work or if you are living in poverty. But you can be $1 over. What the government says is you have to be below this amount in order to receive help. So once you're over that, by any amount, there's nothing available for you.
Right.
And so then when there's no help, then that problem just multiplies. And we are here to be able to help with those situations. And it can be anything from rent, mortgage, power bill, water bill, a bus pass. It can be, a water heater.
Yeah. One of I think we set it off, but I want to say, when it first came to me, I said, what is an Alice? And it was a gentleman that had a vehicle, was working at Caterpillar, but didn't have a water heater. His water heater had broke, but was income constrained and didn't have the savings to go buy the water heater.
Yes.
So what is I guess, the process, the application process, because I know you want to have standards and guidelines and process, but you also, there's enough other programs out there that have standards and guidelines and process that have disqualified these people. So what is that process?
So we work directly with Prairie Land Service Coordination.
Okay.
And they have an intake person that vets all of the applications for us. So we create an application. We don't require somebody to come in and fill it out. We will fill it out with them over a phone call. Yes, they're working, or they can only come in after hours. Those types of things. And it's a simple application. So we will help them fill it out. We just require that they send us a few things, pay stub, if it's rent, a copy of their rental statement, their lease statement, or, whatever the bill is. And then kind of just a brief description of, what happened that you are, was it a flat tire? Was it, you were sick and off work for a week? What's the situation? And it's as simple as that. Then we put it through our process, make sure we have everything, and we determine if we can pay it or not. And, we have a limited amount of money, but typically as long as it's somebody that's working and all of their paperwork aligns, then we're able to help. Okay. We have a very limited amount of money that we're able to spend. But I will say, before we do that, before we actually pay, we look to see if there's any other services available that would be able to cover the cost before we take that, because they may be working, but they may still qualify for some of those services because they're not quite over that poverty level yet. And so we try to do our due diligence and make sure that we're looking at every piece to see if there's other funding available before we do that. So it's been a great program for us to be able to help. And I mean, we get phone calls just constantly. There is a huge need.
What's the feedback when you're able to help someone like that? What sort of response are you getting, or do people come back months later, or what? I haven't heard any of those stories.
Right. So a couple of things. The people that are calling, and we were taking the calls originally, and it's a lot. And one of the things that we found is, because the people that are calling for this assistance, they haven't used services before, and they're embarrassed. They didn't know that there was something available for them. And then they want to tell you everything about themselves of why they need help, because they feel that they need to explain that because they're not used to asking for something.
Right.
And so
there is a perception issue of people that are getting help or asking for help. And these are the people that have never asked for help before, and they want to, there are perceptions.
And it doesn't matter. We say, it's okay. You don't have to, tell us your whole life story in order to get assistance, but they want us to understand this is not who they are.
Right.
And that they're not used to this. Most of them think that there's no help available because that's for other people, not them. And so, but once I've
got a job, I have income, I just can't get ahead.
Yeah. And so, and then the second piece to that is, they almost cry every single time that they get approved. It is such a relief for them, because by the time they get to us, they usually thought there was nothing that was going to be available for them.
Right.
And so it's just such a relief once they find out that they were approved. But then the last point I want to make is, we've been doing this really since 2020. So 4 years, and we've only had, I think it was 4 or 5 people who have ever called back and needed help again. So, and we don't tell them this is one-time help.
Right.
We don't ever say anything like that. But the point is that they're not calling every 365 days and saying, oh, I qualify for help. I can get more help again.
Right.
This is really a one-time, please help me this one time. And I think that's really important to show the population that we're working with that it's not a lifestyle, that I'm not going to pay my power bill every year, but then when it gets ready to get, shut off, somebody will come in and pay that for me. This is... They're trying to maintain, and they don't want to be in this situation, and so that's something that we're excited about, because it just shows that this is the population it was intended for, and it's the population that it's reaching.
Right. That's perfect. So you said people will call or when, I guess when they're approved, you say that they cry.
Yes.
How often do you cry when you give somebody?
Well, that's why I had to stop taking the phone calls, because it was becoming too much on me.
Sure.
That's like secondhand trauma.
Yes.
Because so many of us can relate to those situations, and so really it's a lot. It takes a special person to be able to do this day after day after day and listen to the stories and not become jaded and not, just go home. You do take that stuff home with you. And so it did become a lot, but I still do take a few calls here and there. And, I always say I can't do it because my answer is always yes, no matter what, so I have to really look at our process and help other people follow our process.
Right. Yep. No. And I've known you long enough to know that was
yes.
more than once. I'm sure you've cried with people.
I mean, I come to the board meetings sometimes and tell a story and I'm just like, I can't, but they're powerful stories.
Absolutely.
And they're true stories about things that are happening in our community that we can really make a difference with.
Absolutely. And you're doing it and doing that. And that's fantastic that you are. And again, it goes back to, we're helping elevate people, and the fact that so few actually come back again, it really is, they just need that opportunity, that, not the handout, but the hand up.
Right.
So,
and the ones that, the folks that did call back, all of them had a really great reason why.
Sure.
Except for one of them. And, that person, we realized they'll probably try to call back a lot,
Right.
But everybody else, it was just a weird circumstance that they got into, that they needed some additional help. And so, again, it just really shows, what a little bit of money can do for a family in our community.
Makes a big difference. That's great to know, really. I mean, the difference that we're making there. There's another program that I think is really important that we want to educate the community about too, and that's the Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
Yes.
Going to board meetings, there was a cutout of Dolly Parton in the corner. I noticed it's gone though at the last meeting.
Well, I take Dolly with me when I go do presentations, and she's back.
Okay.
So she's back.
Sure enough, anytime you walk in, there's tall blonde Dolly standing there in the corner. So what is the Imagination Library from Dolly?
So I had been wanting to do this for a really long time. Dolly Parton Imagination Library is a program. It's very simple. 12 books a year to any child in our community 5 years and under. So from newborn to their 5th birthday, they can get a book every single month, and free of charge. And to the family, there's no cost. It doesn't matter income level. It's just there. It is designed so that any child can get it. And that's how Dolly Parton wanted it. And that's how it continues to be. It's a partnership with the Dolly Parton Foundation. Typically, it's United Ways that bring these to their community, but it could be a library or a community foundation. It doesn't have to be a United Way. But we pay, everybody thinks that Dolly Parton Foundation pays for this, and that is not the case. So the partnership is we pay for it, and they pick out the books and they send the books out. We pay for postage and the books. And which is great. The neat part about this is the books, we can do 12 books a year for $30 to one child. So it's $30 a year.
Oh, okay.
And now what happened last year is the state of Illinois put it in their budget. They, the governor wants to make sure Dolly Parton Imagination Library is in every community in the state. And so we had $1.6 million in the budget last year. I think it's 4.3 this year. To be able to
in the whose budget? In the state's budget. In the state's budget. Okay.
To onboard more communities, because I think only 30% of Illinois was covered with the library. And so this was to kind of like jumpstart and get more affiliates in our communities. The goal being that every county has an affiliate and is able to provide books to the kids in their community.
And in reality, you're helping them build a book collection.
So if they start, if they start when they are born, they'll have 60 books in their own library. A couple things about it. So we partner also with Baby Talk, so because they get to see every newborn. Right. And so they will go in and they will, if the parent wants to sign their child up, they'll sign them up immediately. Nice. We've gone to every daycare in Macon County, every library in Macon County, promoting this, trying to get kids signed up. If you have 2 children, they will never get the same book except for the very first book.
Okay.
So the first book for every child is The Little Engine That Could. And so no matter what the age that you start, that's going to be the book. Because that was Dolly's favorite book when she was little. So she makes sure that that's the first book. After that, the children will never get the same book. And so it's not like you have one child starting and they get this set of books, and then you have another child and they get that. They will be completely different books.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So a family will have a very nice collection of books then.
Yes. So that's they've thought about everything so that there's, no duplication. And, but with the state funding, so our costs, they pay for half the cost of books, but we still have to pay the other half and the postage. Okay. So that brings us down to about $15 per child per year for 12 books that we have to cover the costs for. You can't go to Walmart and buy 12 books for $30. Right. I mean, it's super inexpensive. Another thing about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is throughout, not every book, but throughout the series, inside the book flap will be tips and information on how to read to your child, how to engage your child in the book, questions to ask, all of these age appropriate. Nice. So that if you've not read to a child before and you're not quite sure what to do, these little things will help. Everything from just point at the words as you're saying them, when to help children identify and, sounds and shapes and all of those things. So it's, hopefully a little bit of a learning experience, and the parents have the tools that they need to be able to effectively use the book and help the children. Well,
and it is education, but it's building those habits and that environment to help somebody, further their education as they then move into school and different things. I know Cassie, our producer here, mentioned that her kids are part of it and that the books come addressed to the kids too. Yes. So that's just that excitement of them getting something in the mail for them, and it's a book for them.
And really, I didn't know a lot about it, and I have a niece and she was 3 at the time, and I was over at their house and not in Macon County, and she ran out and got her book out of the mailbox. Like her mom knew it came. It's like, your book's here. And she went out and got it. And the excitement, for the child to get their own mail and it was a book and you had to read it right then. Like you couldn't wait, and I was like, what is this? Right. And I was like, from that point on, I was like, we have to bring this to Macon County. Like, this is a great way to get kids excited about books, and which then leads to, a lifetime of that. And, creating those habits of wanting to read and all of those things. So we were super happy when I think it was 2021 when we started. We surpassed, so Dolly Parton Foundation gives you kind of a guide of how many kids you're going to have the first month, how many the second month for 5 years. So, the first month I think was you'll have 17 kids signed up, and then, keep going. We surpassed, I think, the year expectation. It might even been the second year in the first week.
I remember when it started, and then we're like, oh, we're done. Like, we met goal. Or like, I mean, out of funding, basically, is what happened because there was such interest and quite honestly, opportunity.
We were like, whoa, okay, we got to come up with some more money here.
Right.
And so far we have not put a limit on the amount of kids that we can serve. And right now we're over 2,400 kids.
Nice.
At $15, a year.
Good.
So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really, it is quite a bit of money, but it's important. So we've dedicated, and we obviously can't stop now. So we're going to continue and not put a limit on the amount of children that we'll be able to serve. And actually, all 5 of our counties now have it.
Very nice. Very nice. So what else about United Way of Decatur, Mid-Illinois? And you just mentioned the 5 counties. What are the 5 counties, and kind of what else does United Way do for the community to wrap up here?
Sure. So our United Way serves 5 communities. It's Macon, Moultrie, DeWitt, Piatt, and Shelby counties. And what does that look like, and what does that mean? So a lot of United Ways cover multiple counties, but it is all one campaign. It's all one investment process. But we keep all of our counties separate, and we've been very deliberate about that. If you live and work in Clinton, Illinois, you don't want your donations to come to Decatur to serve agencies in Decatur. You want to help your friends, family, neighbors right there in DeWitt County. Right. So each county has its own campaign, has its own investment process. We invest into agencies within that county to make sure that if somebody wants to invest in their community, their investment is going to stay in their community. And we do that with all 5 of our counties. And, each county is a little bit different. The programs are different. The population is different. Their needs are different. And so it's very important to keep that separate and guide it that way. But we have several programs here in Macon County, but then we also still do, we say we're not your grandfather's United Way, where we raised a bunch of money and we just gave it all away. Right. There's a lot more to it than that.
That process. Hit on that process for us.
So, and we're in the middle of the process right now where, yes, we still invest in programs in our community. That's about half of what we do. So when you invest in United Way, we take that community impact fund and align it with our common community approach, which is years of research and working with our community to come up with those lines of effort. And volunteers come in. And so for each line of effort, so like youth education, adult employability, trauma, health, essential services, we have a different panel of people for each one of those. And they come in and they look at budgets, they go over the programs, they look at, most importantly, the program outcomes that the agencies provide and how they align with our common community approach. And then the volunteers make those decisions on the best place to invest community money. It's my money, it's your money, it's the community's money, it's every employee that's ever made a donation, it is their money. And the volunteers take it very seriously. And they are working really hard to invest in programs that are changing people's lives. Not just throwing money at charity and hoping something great happens, but really looking at those programs that have those proven outcomes that are going to change our community.
Absolutely. And I was able to participate a few weeks ago or a month or so ago in the youth education process. And it was, another thing about the process is like all of these organizations have to have true financial statements, have to be in good standing, have to have engaged board members. Like these are organizations that are making a difference. And that's part of that, I would call it due diligence of making sure where the funds are going to the correct programs. Now, I think you've also had instances where an investment was made to a program that could not continue. And those funds did come back to the United Way for redistribution to other programs that were active. And I think that's important for the community to know that there is a prudence factor to the funds that are going out. There is also assurance that those programs are being operated and operated efficiently, quite frankly.
Absolutely. If a program ceases to exist, the agency may still be there, but they didn't do the program or something happened, then yes, that they will not continue to get funding, or they will have to return. And sometimes it's just an adjustment. They make it, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They may say, call and say, we thought this program was going to do this and it's not doing that. And I mean, that's what we want, to have those relationships where they're comfortable saying like, we thought it was going to be this, but it's not really. And then we can adjust and we can figure out the best thing to do at that point. And it doesn't happen very often, but there have been a few that, they have called us and said, what we planned on doing isn't going to happen.
Right.
And, then that money comes back to us, and then we can make sure that it's invested in another program that is important.
Awesome. Well, I've known Debbie long enough to know that this could go on forever.
Yes.
And I know you have many other initiatives and campaigns. And if a company is out there and wants to have an employee campaign, or wants to do a corporate donation, or just wants to get involved either in the process of the fund distribution process, certainly I'm sure you would say reach out to you at the United Way, right?
Absolutely. And, I think sometimes companies are intimidated. They think they have to put a lot of time and effort into a campaign. And really, we can make it super simple. But even if you're just thinking about it, if you call us at United Way, I will kind of give you the information on what it looks like and what it can do for our community. No commitment necessary, and we can just talk about it. I look for those opportunities all the time, because I feel like once somebody understands what we do and they can see that impact, we call it the return on your investment,
right?
That they really want to be a part of it.
And I think a lot of times people have something in their mind that they're passionate about, whether it be, access to healthcare or senior services, or, there's all kinds of different things. So by just calling and talking to you, you're going to kind of lay the cards on the table, and they're going to go, well, I actually have quite an interest in this.
Yes.
And then that lets that relationship develop. So again,
Absolutely.
To community members or companies out there, get involved.
Absolutely. And we'll make it super easy. And, we do cover a wide range of organizations and programs in our community. And the beauty of that piece is they are submitting an application for what they need and for how much.
Right.
And so we can make sure that your investment will go to where it's needed in our community.
Yep. That's excellent. So very good. Anything else to add?
I think that's all. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining. And that was another episode of the Main Points Podcast. Thanks for joining. That was a great episode with Debbie. I really love actually the Dolly Parton Imagination Library program that the United Way here is sponsoring. It really helps build a connection between kids to reading and reading with their parents, and really helps support that habit of reading and education at such a young age. Also the Alice program, helping individuals that are employed, have constrained income, and really don't have a lot of assets. And we know a lot of times people sometimes are just really one crisis away from everything falling apart. So it's great to have a program in our community like that helps those individuals, really not fall and really help elevate to the next level of success for them. So thank you again to Debbie for joining us today. And thank you for listening.